Hello everyone, Tommy with Studio Sense here to tell you that fragrance reviews aren't always for those awesome fragrances that you want to just run out and buy or for new releases. They're often can be a cautionary tale to kind of warn you against those little bit less than stellar offerings or releases that often result from kind of low-end designer houses. And even designer houses that can produce really good fragrances sometimes come along with a stinker or two. When we return, we're going to look at 7 fragrances that I've found that are a little bit less savory, we'll say, than other offerings. You might be surprised at some of these. Either way, we're going to check those out and more, so stay tuned. Hey guys, and welcome back. So today we're looking at 7 fragrances that are a little bit less savory that you may want to avoid, and why exactly. Not all fragrances that are released are going to do fantastic. I'm of the opinion that these fragrances are either filler or the perfumist called in sick or whatever the case may be. They are very lackluster, and I'm going to get into some reasons why on each one of them. Let's go ahead and take a look at our first one. It is from the house of Kenneth Cole. Kenneth Cole is a great designer and actually has some good fragrances as well, but Kenneth Cole For Him is definitely not one of those. This is considered a woody marine fragrance, and I actually really like the presentation. So you can see the shape of the bottle is really nice. The lid itself, now this is just a 50 ml, but the 100 ml looks the same. The lid is very heavy, and I like how the bottom of the bottle mimics the lens of a DSLR camera. See how cool that is? Mineral accord, sea salt, and white citrus in the top. Translucent jasmine, that just means it's not in there, it's invisible. And ginger are in the heart. And you've got some modern woods and white amber. So you see a pattern in the notes there. They all are very, very light. So you've got white citrus, white amber, translucent jasmine. So all these light accords, and the results are also extremely light. This is by far one of the most generic smelling fragrances. There's just not much smell there. I get that the fact that they wanted to go really light, woody marine, so it is slightly woody, and it does have a light salty kind of warmth to it. I don't even care, because literally it will be gone in no time at all. Now, it's not that this is offensive, it's pleasant, it's slightly Aqua de Joe, but there's literally nothing to it. If this is a woody marine type fragrance, its sea legs have been cut off at the knees. Highly recommend not buying Kenneth Cole's For Him. One of the genres of fragrances that are really hard to do well and make unique, because there's just so many of them, is the aqua, like aquatic fragrances, but that's okay. You can still do something that someone else has done, and as long as you do it well, people will appreciate it. Well, Perry Ellis apparently had that in mind when they created Perry Ellis Aqua Extreme. Perry Ellis Aqua Extreme came out in 2016. The perfumer is Jean-Claude Delville, so it's kind of surprising that it's as lackluster as it is, because Mr. Delville has come out with some really good offerings, but this is definitely not one of his better days. Bergamot, aquatic notes, and vervain in the top. You've got geranium absolute, lavender, and juniper in the heart. Resting on a base of labdanum, you've got tobacco notes and some woody notes in there as well. Bergamot, lavender, and juniper are often used to really good effect as a trio to boost a fragrance. They give it a really kind of a bracing and fruity, bright effect. It does work in the top. Again, the top of this is the best feature of this fragrance, and in fact, it's like a promise of more that just never sees a fulfillment. So it has all the ingredients to be a really good aquatic fragrance with some spice infused in there to give it some life and to give it a little bit of boldness and some performance, some longevity. This dries down to be such a bland fragrance. Yeah, so the opening is pleasant. So the promise of this open quickly recedes to a lackluster mid and a almost non-existent base. That's my experience with Perry Ellis Aqua, and the reason I'm bringing it up in this list is that there are so many aquatics like Aqua de Joe Profundo. Any flanker of Aqua de Joe is going to be really good and really high quality and last a lot longer than this. And even though this is kind of a cheapie, still it's not worth paying even a less amount for something that's going to be as lackluster as this. Save that money, add a little bit more to what you already have or would spend on something like this, and get something higher quality. So number 2 to avoid, Perry Ellis Aqua Extreme. Our next fragrance came out in 1996. It is a Calvin Klein, or one of the CK line. Now the CK line of fragrance is very well known for being a little light in performance, light in projection. Like, I don't mind getting a fragrance that smells really good, even if it doesn't last that well, because why do we buy fragrances? Because they smell good, right? Well, fragrances that don't have that longevity to them, they're still smelling really good. You can decant them and take it with you. So it's not really an issue. Even though we all want them to have that banger performance of 10 plus hours, not all are like that. However, this fragrance, which I have no clue why I bought the huge bottle of it, but it is CKB. This smells like the smell of old laundry that have just been sitting there. It smells like they've been sitting in a dank basement. I used to think it smelled like rainwater sitting in a barrel outside. Well, nature isn't always pretty and it doesn't always smell good. And this is an example of that. Bergamot, mandarin orange, mint, and juniper berry in the top. Spices, white peach, apopanax, sandalwood, and tonka are all in the heart and the base of this fragrance. So it's got some nice fragrant notes in there. It's just however they blended it made it a completely... Number one, you can spray this fragrance all day long. There's literally no longevity to this. So it's not offensive. It ends up smelling slightly like humus, wet leaves when you've been walking through the woods, or clothes that have been left in a bag in the basement for too long. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to walk around smelling like old clothes or humus, either one. This next fragrance I got at a rack store for next to nothing because I hadn't heard of it before, and I don't think a lot of people have heard of it before. Nobody really talks about it. It's hard to find information about it online. It is called Carrera Black. One of those car manufacturer fragrances that was changed hands. I think Morin Wertz actually bought them out now. And carries Carrera Black. So is to me just a supremely generic, boring, and forgettable. When you look at a fragrance, you have to compare it to other fragrances of the same ilk out there. There are so many fragrances out there. What I want you to take away from this particular segment of the video is that if you run across Carrera Black and you're like, wow, that's really cheap. I think it was like $9, $8.99, $7.99, something like that. Walk right by it. There are so many fragrances that do what this one's trying to do so much better. And what's funny is if you go to Fragrance X to check this out, they don't even know what the notes are in it. They're just like, oh, it's a timeless classic for nighttime and daytime wear. So they just make some generic statements about it because nobody really cares about Carrera Black because it's not worth caring about. My next fragrance is from a fragrance line that often gets walked right by in rack stores, but for those of you that have taken some time and purchased some of their fragrances like Riviera, which I consider to be one of their better ones, from the house of English Laundry comes Notting Hill. It's super reflective, almost kind of like a gold, kind of a nice presentation. But the fragrance itself is, I like fragrances that actually promote themselves by way of a somewhat unique personality. Or if their personality is like someone else that's enjoyable, even if it's a decent mimic of an enjoyable personality, I'll accept that over something that's just simply generic and boring, and that's what Notting Hill is. Citrus fruits, bergamot, lemon, lime, blackcurrant in the top, jasmine, rose, lily, lavender, green notes in the heart, cashmere musk, patchouli, sandalwood, tonka bean, there's just cedarwood in the base. So it's kind of just like a generic formula of a man's fragrance. So again, it's not that this stinks, it's not that it smells bad or is offensive or challenging, it's just not anything. Like, I would rather it be challenging than just supremely boring, but it doesn't manage to go anywhere. In terms of the performance, it is going to be better than, say, Kenneth Cole For Him. It does say a lot more than that, but it just doesn't say it very well. And it doesn't say it in such a way that is even compliment pulling. I've worn this quite a few times, given it an opportunity, and I've never once pulled a compliment, never once had anybody say, that smells really good. I actually wore this well before our COVID situation in a lot of situations that could have pulled a compliment and should have, quite honestly, and never did because there's just not really much to compliment, not much to say about a generic, lackluster, boring fragrance. There's so many out there. If you do just want to have an English Laundry fragrance, I recommend Riviera. It's a pretty solid fragrance for an English Laundry release, but definitely avoid Notting Hill. Even at the bare minimum, something has to compare to Bulgari Aqua Atlantique. You got Dolce & Gabbana Light Blue and Light Blue Eau Intense. You've got Hugo Now. You've got a plethora of blue aquatic fragrances that are so much better, so they've got to at least measure up to those. Another fragrance that doesn't measure up to those and is in fact has a terrible after effect in terms of smell is Eternity for Men Aqua. This is kind of like a derivation of the Eternity fragrance with some aquatic. And what's weird is this is categorized as a woody aromatic fragrance. So why would a aquatic fragrance be woody? Well, Aqua de Jo has driftwood in it. It does have woody notes, but that adds to an actual composite that Aqua de Jo is kind of drawing up, and it does so very successfully. Eternity Aqua does not even remotely compare. First of all, the bottle's just okay. This fragrance has got more in common with a floral fragrance than slightly feminine. So it's got a little bit of synthetic aquatic going on, but it's just kind of a harsh synthetic aquatic. It also smells like something you'd smell on a little old lady walking by, like in one of those old Avon fragrances, Skin So Soft and all that. That's what this reminds me of. And I've actually mentioned this before, so I'm bringing it up again. This was, I think, in a haul video. So if you didn't get to see that haul video and my cautionary tale recommending avoiding this, this is the second time around. I'll give you another opportunity. I highly recommend not getting Calvin Klein's Eternity Aqua because there are so many other aquatic fragrances, among which a few that I mentioned a moment ago, that you can get if you want an aquatic than this cheap synthetic mess called Eternity Aqua. Have you ever heard of the saying that a carpenter is only as good as the tools that he's using? That's actually true for most any art, specifically in the realm of perfumery. Now, perfume master Lavalier created this fragrance that we're going to be talking about next. It is a 2012 fragrance. It's one of those celebrity fragrances that likely had a small budget. Lavalier, he's created such masters as Dolce & Gabbana The One, Midnight in Paris, original Dior Homme. So just a ton of really good, and I think he's specifically on the payroll of Chanel now. So wonderful master perfumer, but when he created David Beckham The Essence, and this is a 50 ml bottle. Now you can find this in CVS, Walgreens, Checkmart, any kind of pharmacy that has hygiene or skincare products or fragrances will carry David Beckham, and you can find it throughout discounters. It's really inexpensive. You can get a 100 ml bottle for like 13 bucks. There's a reason it's inexpensive. It smells awful. Grapefruit, lavender, violet leaf, pineapple, apple, cardamom, cashmere, patchouli, tonka bean. I mean, these are some wonderful notes, but in David Beckham The Essence, they're awful. So the quality of ingredients that went into this is really, really low. The budget was likely really, really low. It's a burst of alcohol. It's synthetic. It doesn't get any more pleasant, and the more that it dries down, it crosses a line into this weirdly bitter, acrid smell and almost taste in the back of your throat. Really, it's no reflection on Lavalier. Ash and I were actually talking about it today, and he had a really good analogy. He was like, what if you gave James Cameron $50,000 and said, make the Avatar? It wouldn't be the Avatar that we have today. It still would be made by James Cameron. So it's no reflection of the perfumer, it's just a reflection of the budget itself and the constraints. So this is definitely going to be one, David Beckham The Essence, that you'll want to avoid purchasing. Well guys, there are so many other fragrances out there, and as time goes on, I'm gonna feature some of those to kind of let you know what to, hopefully steer you away from those that will waste your money and steer you towards those that will maximize your dollar, because really that's what it's all about in this industry, is maximizing your money and finding those fragrances that you really resonate with and that you really like. Unfortunately, there are many out there that don't do that, and I just consider these 7 some of those. So thanks so much for stopping by and checking out my video today. As always, thank you so much for your support here on my channel. I'm Tommy with Studio Sense, and I'll see you tomorrow.